What's up, everybody? This is Brad with the website Tecmo Bowl versus RBI.com. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 12 Tecmo Bowl punters. And punting is not something I'm exceedingly passionate about, but I take it very seriously. Punting and field position, they go hand in hand, and field position is extremely vital. It's an extremely key facet of Tecmo Bowl. So today, we're going to look at all the different punters. We're going to show their abilities. We're also going to take some time to explain how it affects and impacts the game, and how it also plays a role in the matchups and how everything's bear out. So let's get to some game footage, and we're going to talk about the guys that give the ball back to the other team. First guy we're going to take a look at is Indianapolis's Ron Stark. And in this exercise, everyone's going to be punting with the line of scrimmage as the 20. Stark can punt the ball 71 yards from the line of scrimmage. So as you're going to see, McConkey's going to catch this here about the 8.5-yard line, take it out to roughly the 22-yard line. So with Stark being one of the best punters in the game, it's easy for Indy to flip field position if they have to punt from their 20. Their opposition is going to start, and it really helps their defense. They have one guy on defense that I really like to use. That's Dwayne Bickett. Other than that, they have a bunch of slow guys, but when they can flip the field like that, it really helps their defense. So let's take a look at the next team here. And this here is Miami with Reggie Roby. And Roby has the same rating as Stark, so he's going to drop it. They're about the 7.5, 8, similar situation. And the Raiders would take over at the 21. So Miami, like Indy, doesn't have a lot on defense, and so they can use that to their advantage. In this video, every punt is going to be a full power. I hit full power on every time. But I also want you to consider the situation at hand when a player doesn't hit that. Say you go a little bit early, so you only get maybe 85% of the meter. That would affect field position because the ball, instead of dropping at the 8, might be dropping at the 20. So when you have the punters with the good strong leg, you can have a little bit more confidence in his ability, but also you can always leave a little bit at the end of the meter there just to be safe, because if you miss and you get a no power punt, no, that's pretty disastrous. Cleveland, I believe he's a 65-yard. Yeah, Johnson, 65. Now this guy's, he's a step down from the last two we've just shown. So as you can see, Brown's there, and remember, Stark and Roby were putting them there, so you got a good 5 yards difference here. And it didn't really affect or impact the field position too much. So, I mean, sometimes that happens, but again, keep in mind, people aren't always going to get the full power punts, and so the better the punter, the better off you are. Here comes Denver. Now this guy here, Mike Horan, he can only punt the ball 55 yards from line of scrimmage. So him and Ruben Rodriguez of Seattle are two of the worst in the game. So to illustrate, he's going to be catching the ball here at the 24-yard line. So the difference between Indy's punter and Denver's punter, you're looking at about a 16-yard difference here. Let's go back here just a smidge. So as you see, Darrell Green gets to the 30. Indy's guy was here. 8 yards might not sound like a lot to you, but in the scope, 8 yards, that's the difference between a field goal attempt and not. That might be the difference in scoring a touchdown. So it's definitely it's key to note. Comes Ruben Rodriguez of Seattle, same as Mike Horan, 55-yard-ish type punt. Catch at the 25. Here, McConkey's out to the 32. Now keep in mind what we talked about also, say you didn't get a full power punt, say it dropped here at the 30, McConkey might be up here to the 40 to start. Again, as to where other teams, that's when you start seeing the difference, is when the weak punters, when you miss or you don't have a long punt. And LA with Daryl Talley, I think. Not Daryl Talley, he played for the Bills. Talley's a 65-yarder, so he's kind of in that middle of the pack range as well. And catching at the 15, we'll see what Carter can do. Gets a block out to the 25. And this is Washington with Cox. And Cox is a 71-yard guy, so he's kind of in that second level there. Again, you know, catching it at the 9 basically. Here comes Gentry, who's fast. And Gentry's he's the fastest kick returner on the game. He also fields punts. And the Bears are starting at the 16-yard line. So when you couple those two things together, you know, imagine if the return man was slower, they might be starting at the 14 or the 15. Got San Francisco. Now this is going to be a good illustration here. Because as you watch this, McConkey's going to have a pretty big punt return. Let me get ready to pause this when he gets there. Oh, sorry, missed it here. So McConkey catches it at the, 8.5. Now watch this. This is kind of rare. But McConkey's going to have a big punt return, 10 yards, 20 yards, almost 25. Just roll back here where he got tackled. Think about when Denver and Seattle, when their punts dropping at the 25 here. What happens if McConkey, who's slow, rattles off a 20-yard return, which is rare. Then is Denver's defense, man. They're taking the field at the 45-yard line. So the rare times that happens, it can really put teams like Denver and Seattle in a bind. So something to keep in mind with the punting situation and field position as well. Comes Dallas, Mike Saxon. Saxon he's a 61, so he kind of falls into that third category. Catches the 20, decent return out to the 32. So 32-yard line's a pretty decent place to start. I chose the 20 just because it was easy for me to get to that particular line of scrimmage. The thing with Tecmo is you're usually not punting from your 20. But I thought it would make a good illustration. Now, the one thing I will say about the weaker punters, sometimes, if you have Chicago or Denver or Seattle, it's a little bit easier to drop. Say you're Denver and you're at your own 45-yard line. Sometimes it's easier to just get 3/4 of the meter and drop that ball inside the 5. So there's a little bit of advantage there from punting from midfield. But, if you're Denver and you're punting from the 30, I'm always going to rather be the Giants in that situation than Denver's punter. Here's Sean Landetta. This guy can punt the ball 76 yards. This ball is going to land at the 3. So check this out. Darrell Green will catch it at the 3, and it actually had a decent return there, getting out to the 18 here. Yeah, 18-ish. But just think about that in that context. I went 3 and out of my 20, and my opponent's going to start at their 18. So field position, my friends. Chicago, Wagner, 61-yarder. So I consider 65 to be average. So then, this is the below average guys catching at the 19 and makes the 28. And Minnesota with Greg Coleman, 65-yard guy. So a little bit better than Chicago's punter. Back to 13, 25-yard line. Well, that concludes the punting tutorial here. So I hope this shed a little bit of light. Again, when you play, you're not always punting from the 20. So it's not a perfect science looking at this. But it does impact the matchups. When you are Denver or Seattle and you can only punt the ball 55 yards, but you're playing New York, you can punt the ball 76 yards. You don't need to be a math major to know that that's a 21-yard distance. And over the course of the game, That's, provided the teams are in a kind of a defensive struggle, that's a pretty good size advantage for New York. And what can happen is there's a kind of a war of attrition that goes on, and if Denver and Seattle continue to struggle to move the ball, they can find themselves, backed up and pinned in their own end of the field repeatedly, and eventually that's what gives a team like New York a shorter field to work with. So just a little, food for thought there. So, well, that's been my video. I hope you enjoyed talking about punters. So we'll see you in the next one.